Welcome to Keep What You Earn, a show for entrepreneurs and business owners who want to scale and build enterprise value without making costly mistakes. I'm your host, Shannon. I'm a CFO and CPA who left a career serving Fortune 50 companies in Wall Street to help business owners just like you make life-changing wealth with your business. These episodes are meant to be super tactical and actionable, but please remember, consult your own financial professional before you implement anything you learn in this podcast. Now, if you'd be interested in working with us to do so, check out the show notes for more information about our company, Keep What You Earn Co. All right, let's start the show. So in the last episode, we talked about cash flow and we talked about how to properly manage, maintain, monitor cash flow in the last few episodes. And what I hinted at was that one of the biggest impactors to cash flow is having some type of recurring or reoccurring revenue model. And that's what we're going to dive into with step number 4 in our profitable scaling playbook, which is customer value. Now, customer value is really about multiplication of what works and about layering on and using your customers and extracting the most value out of them that you can, as opposed to scattering everywhere and trying to sell everything to everyone all the time. It's exhausting. So when it comes to customer value, I want you to understand a couple of key metrics you need to be measuring. One is your customer acquisition cost, which is often referred to as the CAC. So customer acquisition cost is going to be all of the costs associated with acquiring your customer. Now, this is not just ad spend, although it is closely associated with ad spend. If you look at the amount of dollars that you spend on Facebook ads or Meta ads, and then you look at how many leads you got or how many clients you got, that's an easy calculation to say it cost me this much money for this many clients that came out of my Meta ads. But a little bit more complicated would be adding in not just Meta ads, but you're going to be adding in what's the cost of my marketing agency? What's the cost of all these conferences I'm going to? What's the cost of my podcast? What's the cost of all of my travel? What's the cost of every single mastermind conference thing you go to for business development? I want you to understand that goes into your acquisition cost. And let me just do a little callback to section 2, where we talked about operating profit. This is where it really benefits you to be tracking your P&L and your budget by acquisition costs, fulfillment costs, and operating costs, because you can take simply that section of your P&L and say acquisition costs. When you put all those different acquisition costs in that bucket in your QuickBooks, you can take that and say, okay, that's all my acquisition costs for the year. How many new clients did I get this year? How many clients did I acquire this year? And that's a very simple calculation, right? It makes it a lot easier for you to figure out what your CAC is over a period of time. I recommend looking at it over the course of a year just as a baseline if you're not really sure what your CAC actually is from a per client level. But also, sometimes you can specifically identify a client acquisition cost. So for example, if I go to a conference and because I was at that conference, I secured a client, then I look at that as technically it cost me with that conference ticket to go get that client, So it's a little bit more direct. But if you're not really sure how to measure this, a good baseline would be the total amount of acquisition costs you spent in a year and then the number of clients that you acquired from it. So a thing that you need to be paying attention to is your CAC, but the ratio, hear me out, the ratio of your CAC to what that client generates. Because again, we go back to the core profitability. So we have to make sure every client is profitable, every patient is profitable, every customer is profitable. So when you think about, and this is where we're going to be pulling in old stuff, okay? So we talked about core offer profit on a per offer level. Hey, real quick, are you learning anything in this episode that you think is share worthy? Well, if you could take a quick screenshot and share any of your biggest takeaways or quotes from this episode, post it to Instagram and make sure to tag me at Shannon K. Weinstein and at Keep What You Earn. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Let's dive back in. Let's talk about core offer profit on a customer level. So hear me out. When we think about core offer profit, remember, it's simply the difference between what you sell something for and what it costs you to make, okay? So I use my med spa example throughout this whole thing. Let's use a med spa and say, okay, you're going to offer this service, this aesthetic service, and the cost of it is essentially the materials you have to put with the machine, the time of your provider, your esthetician, and then any other materials costs and so on. And maybe you have a few other little costs that you want to add in there just to say, hey, it also costs us their disposable items and things like that, ancillary things. So we say, okay, it cost us, and forgive my irrational math here, but I want to make it easy. So I sell a service for $400 and it costs me $100 to do it. So that means that I'm making a gross profit, aka a core offer profit of 300 per service. Okay. Simple. So if we do that, say 300 per service, I want to then multiply that by the number of times the average customer purchases that offer in their lifetime. And by their lifetime, I mean their lifetime with you, not like in 80, 90 years. But I mean, in terms of their lifetime as a customer with you, we want to figure out, hey, how long is the average patient, client, customer lifespan with our company? And that's a very important metric for you to know. So let's just say that the average lifespan is 2 years. Like they'll come to you consistently for 2 years. And let's use our example still. So they come to you consistently for 2 years. That means that if you're going to get a monthly facial, let's just say they're in some type of program or they follow your advice and they come for a monthly facial at that $300 gross profit, then what's going to happen? Because I can't do math in my head, I'm going to look at my phone. Is you're going to have 24 months times that $300 gross profit, and you're going to have $7,200. That $7,200 becomes the lifetime value of that customer. Hear me out. If their lifetime is 2 years and they spend on average this much money and it costs you this much money to provide, then you factor all of that in and you say, okay, over the course of 2 years, this customer will gross us $7,200 that basically that's what we make off of them that we can then use to go spend on our business. Okay. So that's the core offer profit per customer. Now, that's what we call the LTV, the lifetime value. The lifetime value of a customer is essentially lifetime gross profit or lifetime core offer profit on a customer level. So when we figure that out, we want to make sure that that ratio is good. But what does good mean? Good means I would say 8 to 10, 8 to 10 plus. You want to be in a position where it's costing you 10 to 15% of what you make. You know, you want to multiply what you're spending and what you're making. You don't want to be spending 90 cents to make a dollar. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be really honing that in. And the ways we're going to talk about that we increase lifetime value and we reduce customer acquisition costs in the next episode are going to uncover the levers you can pull to make sure this metric is even better. So when we think about customer value, we have to be thinking about increasing lifetime value, reducing CAC. And there are several ways to do that, which I'll uncover for you in the next episode. But I want you to fundamentally understand the importance of these two things and the factors that can be really, really impactful to them, including whether or not your recurring revenue models are working, whether or not you have upsell models. All of this we're going to talk about in the next episode just to figure out what levers you can pull to increase customer value. Okay, so if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I love talking about profit and cash flow. But if you've mastered these things, the next level thing to be focused on is your customer value. If you have to constantly hustle to sell more and hit your revenue goals, it's important to think about how you can deliver more value, build retention, and maximize the lifetime profitability of every customer. When you invest in a power session, we're able to dive into your customer acquisition cost and determine some personalized strategies to decrease your costs and increase the lifetime value of your customers. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.